This is Punk Rock and Politics, and today is October 17th, 2017, and this is episode number 40. Wow, let's do this.
These days are strange, it's true.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
If you think that punk rock doesn't mix with politics, you're wrong.
Welcome to Punk Rock and Politics. Today we'll be talking to fellow podcast hosts JayRay and Loop Dogg from the podcast Politics with Dummies about the current state of healthcare in the US, climate change, and finally, Loop Dogg's favorite topic, North Korea. Then on Open Mic's last call, we'll talk about the NFL and is politics bleeding into sports and everyday life? And if so, is that necessarily a bad thing? So let's get to the political mosh pit. But first, here's the news of the week.
Here's what's making news.
President Trump will be pushing tax cuts over the next several weeks. In his plan, he wants to lower corporate tax and simplify the tax code. But if anything will be passed in the Congress is a different issue. Here's Bernie Sanders on the Senate floor with his rebuttal of the tax plan.
But I would beg of the American people, please pay attention to the budget proposal and the so-called tax reform ideas brought by the Republican leadership here in the Senate as well as in the House. This proposal would cause devastating economic pain for tens of millions of Americans by, on one hand, giving incredibly large tax breaks for the wealthiest people in the country, while at the same time making it harder for our children to get a decent education, harder for the families of this country to get the health care they need, harder for families to literally put food on the table, harder to protect our environment, and harder for the elderly to live their retirement years with dignity. Mr. President, this is the Robin Hood proposal in reverse, the Robin Hood principle in reverse. Instead of taking from the rich to help the poor, this proposal makes massive cuts in programs desperately needed by the middle class and working families of our country, precisely to give unbelievably large tax breaks to the people on top, the people who least need those tax breaks. Mr. President, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, where we have more inequality today than at any time since the 1920s, and more inequality than almost any major country on earth, where the very, very rich are becoming much richer, we have 40 million people living in poverty, and tens of millions of middle-class families are going nowhere in a hurry. This Republican budget, according to the Tax Policy Center, at the end of 10 years would provide 80% of the tax benefits to the top 1%.
And President Trump is giving Congress 6 months to revise the Iran deal, which was crafted between the US, Iran, and the international community. The probability of Congress revising the deal to suit President Trump as well as the international community and Iran is not very likely. Seems like this was done just to make it fail. More news on this as it develops. California wildfires have killed 41 people and burned over 200,000 acres in California's wine country in Sonoma, Napa, and Mendocino counties. This being possibly one of the worst natural disasters in California history. Let's hope for some rain. With Congress unable to act on repealing the ACA, also known as Obamacare, President Trump took matters into his own hands, signing an executive order that will allow customers to buy short-term healthcare policies, which don't have to comply with the Obamacare protections for those with pre-existing conditions. It will also allow employers to give workers their money back in order to buy healthcare coverage through reimbursement arrangements. Trump's critics say the executive order is an attempt to sabotage the Affordable Care Act, and here's President Trump on signing the executive order.
This is why in a few moments I will sign an executive order taking the first steps to providing millions of Americans with Obamacare relief. It directs the Department of Health and Human Services, the Treasury, and the Department of Labor to take action to increase competition, increase choice, and increase access to lower-priced, high-quality health care options. And they will have so many options. This will cost the United States government virtually nothing, and people will have great, great health care. And when I say people, I mean by the millions and millions.
Former 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick has filed a grievance against the NFL and team owners, who he claims colluded against him in order to keep him out of the league for taking a knee during the national anthem in order to protest police brutality. The ramifications of this ruling could reach far beyond sports, and more on this at the end of the program. And on this day in rock history, October 17th, 1968, Ziggy Marley, the son of the late Bob Marley, was born. So happy birthday, Ziggy! And that's the news of the week! What's up, my fellow political junkies? Today on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, we're changing it up a bit, and we'll be featuring fellow podcast hosts JayRay and Loop Dogg from the podcast Politics with Dummies. These self-proclaimed dummies of politics put together a hilarious take on politics, mixing social commentary and random banter into their podcast. Every episode is bound to leave you laughing, but it also opens up the door to some interesting political dialogue between the two hosts, JayRay and Loop Dogg. After hearing a few of their episodes and laughing my ass off, I knew I had to feature these two on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, and I gave JayRay the honor of picking some of the music that will be played throughout this episode from bands that have already been previously featured on the podcast. So here's JayRay's first musical pick, then we'll get into the interview. So here's USA by Reagan Youth. Alright, and that was USA by Reagan Youth, and I have JayRay and Loop Dogg from a fellow podcast of mine, and one that I like to listen to. It's called Politics with Dummies. So what's up, JayRay and Loop Dogg? How are you guys doing?
What's up? JayRay on the airway. All right.
That's right, and that's Loop Dogg, LOOPDOGG. That's me, that's right.
There we go. Thanks. Yeah, good. You guys introduce yourselves and everything. So sweet, and you guys have a really funny way of looking at politics. I really thought it was really entertaining. That's why I reached out to you, and I was like, I gotta have these two funny fuckers on the air because you guys crack me up. And it's, your show's called Politics with Dummies. So, you guys, I would say you're not like the average person because I think you guys do know more than the average American. But, you're not experts and you don't have experts on. So it's really fun to listen to because you talk about average things and from a kind of an average perspective. So how did your podcast start up and how did you guys meet?
Well, we've known each other like 15 years. Loop Dogg was actually in my wedding. But this is the first time he's ever been to my house.
Absolutely the first
so
time.
So you've kind of brought us together.
You guys, nice.
I like to think that we were kind of brought together by animosity and hatred.
And I think that comes through in the podcast.
Right. Yeah.
But it all started. I'm a podcast guy. I cannot sleep without a podcast. And I started trying to do one by myself, kind of like yours, Mike. Mm-hmm. Is it okay if I call you Mike or is it Michael?
Yeah, whatever.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And I did a couple, and I listened to them, and I sound like a pompous ass when I was doing it, so I had to bring in somebody dumber than me.
Oh, my God.
And guess who came to mind?
Here we go with grandiosity again. Have you not let up with that yet? I mean, seriously.
And together, we're making history, Loop. I mean, we're totally doing it.
Well, I didn't think that I would be riding your coattails as far as technology is concerned.
I picked Loop Dogg because I was friends with him on Facebook. I've known him for a long time, like I say, and everything he puts on Facebook is just psychotic political bullshit.
Please understand that's all opinionated crap, okay?
Yeah, because one thing I do
whatever I put up there is heartfelt.
Yeah, well, one thing I do really like about your podcast is, you guys kind of have a different opinion, politically opinions, and that's one thing I try to do here on this podcast is bring people, on the air who are left, right, center, all areas. So you guys kind of have a different opinion, and I think it's really cool when you guys go at it with your different dialogue about certain issues.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'll tell you what, it really stems into JayRay and Loop Dogg's relationship stems into other areas other than just current events and politics. I mean, our personal lives and our friendship is full of tumultuous banter, and I think Politics with Dummies surfaced from that because we started to see that people really they enjoyed to watch.
How long is this fucking story?
Oh my God.
We have plenty of time. We have plenty of time.
Well, here it is. I don't. Can't listen.
You're the one that came to me and said, Loop Dogg.
That is true.
People love our banter. I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Are you in?
That's exactly what happened.
And then I'm thinking to myself, all right, this guy has to invade my home every other Friday. I had to take that into consideration.
Yeah, because you have just so much to fucking do.
You could go, eat his food, drink some beer, and record the podcast, and you're like...
I make him buy the beer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Loop Dogg.
Well, honestly, this is my first visit at his house. He did offer me a beer, although he's 12 fluid ounces shy of what I normally give him.
Okay, thanks.
This is not a math course.
No. Yeah, well, that's always makes the podcast a little more exciting when you have a beer or two or three in you. As I found out when I do my my live ones, it's pretty fun.
Just for the record, we only drink 24 fluid ounces throughout the show.
Fuck's sake. At 9 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. That's it's got to be a happy hour somewhere, right?
For sure.
So typically here on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, we'll feature bands and then we'll play their music. So you guys, obviously, we have Loop Dogg, big hair metal, or what is it, hair band metal fan.
What do you call it? Glam rock?
Glam rock.
Yeah, even
what
worse.
do you want to call it, dude?
But
where are you getting all this information
from me?
Yeah, I found it on your wiki. You didn't know? It's all on your Wikipedia page, man.
Does he have a Wikipedia page?
No.
Tell me he does.
It's going to be inevitable. Trust me.
If he didn't, he's going to now. But so one thing I did, I reached out to JayRay. and asked him to pick out a few songs to feature on the podcast. Intermission, because I like to throw in the music, because I always wanted to be like an FM DJ, but then I love talking about politics, so I figured, here we go. I can mix the two, and we can listen to awesome music as we talk about politics. So let's check out one more band, and then we'll get into the political mosh pit and get into some politics with dummies in the political mosh pit, which should be fun.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, right.
So here's another one that JayRay, a band that JayRay picked out. It's At the Courthouse Upon Deaf Ears.
They say your child will never live a normal life. Welcome to the world. We'll walk hand in hand to struggle to thrive. And even though this world will drag you down, fuck 'em, they're all the same. And this song is for you, son. And this song is for you, son. Fuck 'em all. Stand strong. Stand tall. And this song is for you, son. And this song is for you, son.
And that was At the Courthouse Upon Deaf Ears. And I still have the guys from Politics with Dummies, the podcast, JayRay and Loop Dogg. And when I had the band At the Courthouse on the podcast here, we talked about the current state of healthcare system. And this was a few months ago. And now we have the Trump administration. He tried to pass, the Congress, they tried to pass several times and failed, the repeal and replace of Obamacare. And then now Trump is actually doing the executive order, which is pulling back federal funding for states and everything. So what's your guys' opinion and outlook on the current health care system and Trump and the Congress's disaster of what they're doing, or what they can't do, I suppose?
This whole executive order thing, I mean, I'm having a real problem with that. I mean, where do the people lie in an executive order?
See, just a little background on Loop Dogg. Loop Dogg is a Trump supporter big time, okay? And he likes to flip-flop, and by the end of this discussion, he'll be for Trump somehow. But
Absolutely.
I agree the executive orders suck, but something has to be done. Like I voted for Obama for the health care, and we got the health care. And it seems like every year it's gotten a little worse, like it was built to be revised as it went, but it never got revised. Yeah. So I'm for new health care. I'm for fixing it. But what I'm not for is Trump setting a deadline, not getting what he wants, and then doing his own thing.
How are you going to sit there and regulate health care for the masses when the population keeps growing and the needs of the people continuously change?
It's
politics with dummies.
All right.
Well, I think JayRay, you totally hit on a really good point. Is when the ACA passed, it was almost like Obama and the Democrats were like, "Oh, we'll put this in place, and then we'll come back and put universal health care or Medicare for all," which, it took, 40, 50 years. I think in the 60s was the last time they really reformed the healthcare market with Medicare and everything. So I don't understand what the thinking on the Democrats would be. And so what's your opinion on the ACA? Because you're more of a liberal-minded person, I would
am.
say. Yeah. So what's your opinion on the Affordable Care Act or the ACA?
I love it. I don't think it went far enough. Exactly. I think we need more like England or Australia's plan where it's totally free. It should be our right to have that. And I know that's kind of a socialist thing, and Loop Dogg's giving me that you're a communist stare.
How are the doctors going to get paid when it's free? I mean, where do the funds?
I don't think that the doctors in England and Australia are on welfare. Yeah. Okay, well, I really don't.
Imagine.
Well, it's to go to Loop Dogg's point. It really cuts the money out of the health insurance industry. The people who provide health care, you pay them monthly, they provide health care, and then when you go and you actually want something done, they're like, oh, that's going to be denied, or that's not covered because pre-existing conditions, or oh, now you hit your lifetime cap. So these were some problems that Obamacare did fix, but now it looks like they're going to get rid of them.
I don't mean to call out Loop Dogg.
Wasn't Obamacare set up for failure?
It wasn't set up for failure.
I think it was set up to get fixed. Yeah. I mean, see, the problem with the healthcare industry, in my opinion, like you were saying, JayRay, is you need to have it more like Canada or Europe, where it's universally based and it's not really profit based for the health insurance companies. But Obama and the Democrats, they basically gave a handout to the insurance industry. Oh, here's 40 new million customers. So I don't understand how the Democrats pushed that and how they loved it so much. I don't get it, because you're helping the insurance company, the industry. That's really, a lot of these CEOs, they're making $10,000 a day. That's their compensation. What are you doing to make that much money?
And I agree with you. And like I say, I did vote for Obama, but I'm not an Obama defender in any means. But he ran on, I'm going to get health care, and then he rushed it through. And I think we should have took our time. And I don't think in the same...
he should.
On the other hand, on the right hand, I don't think Trump giving them 6 months to get this done is the time that they need, because this is more complicated than anything that I can think of right now.
Now, what's the left hand doing?
And if I could bring in Loop Dogg's personal situation, he is a pre-existing condition.
Yes.
So he might have some insight on this, but I doubt it. Go ahead.
Well, the insight, I don't know. I obviously...
What is your health care like, Loop Dogg?
My health care?
Yes, sir.
My personal health care?
Yes.
You mean my current state of health?
For Christ's sake. What kind of insurance do you have?
Oh, dude, isn't that kind of private?
Are we getting into HIPAA?
I can't throw myself out there like that. There are certain areas that I will divulge. Okay. But excuse me, okay. I think you asked me who I voted for in the last election.
You won't even answer that.
Why would I?
I have no idea.
That's my own personal business.
Is he too far from the mic now?
No. You guys are good.
It's grandiose over here.
What state? I don't think I've ever heard. What state are you guys located in?
We're in Illinois, just outside Chicago.
Oh, okay. So that's a liberal, a blue state. So
it is.
Theoretically, anyone you voted for, it kind of doesn't matter, because that state would have it went for Hillary.
Yeah,
would have went for Hillary no matter what. Yeah. So, like over here in California, I have no problem saying all day long, I voted for Jill Stein because I'm in California. So it doesn't even matter who I voted for. Really.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but I think back to the healthcare thing, I think it's kind of like we have a society where, I mean, in my personal opinion, if people are sick, they're dragging down society. So I don't understand why at least we should provide basic healthcare to people so they're not sick. And bring it back here in San Diego, we had a huge hepatitis A outbreak because our homeless population it's pretty bad, and it's all over the city. So a lot of the homeless were getting hepatitis A and, going around downtown and spreading it. And I think a dozen people or so died and hundreds have been sick. So it's quite a big issue. But if we had some sort of universal based healthcare system where people could just go get help, I think we would avoid little situations like that.
And why does that idea scare Republicans so much?
I don't know. Loop Dogg, would you like to explain?
Well, actually, I was going to interject, but I've been told not to until you were finished.
Yeah.
Oh no, interject
That's why I'm over here in
anytime,
a bow
please.
tie. You know what I mean? You know, we gotta behave.
Will
here
you
a little
just
bit.
fucking answer the question?
Honestly, so your take on healthcare is to keep everybody healthy, so they're healthy enough to contribute to society, correct?
Yeah, essentially.
So
yeah.
they're independent and able to make money and contribute to not only their households but also into their communities, right?
Motherfucker, what is your stand on it? Why are Republicans against
I'm
it?
actually referring to what he.
You're
had
just saying
stated.
back what he just said.
No, he didn't really say that, did he? No, I don't think he did.
Well,
Kinda,
yeah,
yeah, you
you're feeding back what I said. I think so. Yeah.
But the question was, why do Republicans? Why does that scare them so much?
But
Having health
do I
care?
look like a Republican to you?
Yes. You look stupid.
Well, we can't see here, so we have no visuals.
Trust
You're
me,
on the
he looks
radio.
stupid.
Okay, well, we'll have to take JayRay's
Yeah, okay, we're gonna have to rely on personal opinion here.
So, like most Republicans I know, they can't answer that question. So I don't understand. Is because it's the money? Is everything
I'm
about
sorry,
the money?
but I think that kind of delves into the area that the Republicans are purposely keeping the population ill, so they are non-productive.
You said it.
Okay,
I didn't say
so
it.
they are
You said it.
non-productive and looking for a handout.
I think it's the other way. I think that the executives and the higher ups are trying to keep the money instead of give the money.
Yeah, and they
Well,
don't.
so we're talking
They
about
don't even
me.
think about the
I'm talking about- okay,
ramifications about all the sick people.
Yeah, if these people worked and had a good job, they could afford their own health insurance, and your pre-existing condition is not my problem. That's the vibe I get from the Republicans. Yes.
In general,
Okay.
yeah.
We
So
can't-
when
we can't
they watch
afford-
me walk into their building with my cane and limp,
Yes.
they're like,
They
"What's
can't
this guy
afford
doing
your
here?"
problem.
Nor do they want to hear your issues.
Yes. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think on this particular topic, they are quite self-centered.
I
More
believe
than others.
I believe they're that way as far as money.
And the liberal in me, the
know?
bleeding heart, says, why can't
bleeding heart.
we spend the money to help the people that
I'm
can't
sorry,
help
when I
themselves?
associate with you, I don't see the bleeding heart.
I know you don't.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think the only real justification on the right that I've heard about keeping our healthcare system is that it is different from the universal healthcare system of Europe and Canada and whatnot, but because it's based on the private system. You go out, you buy whatever you want, and it's the capitalist, individualist society. Pull yourselves up by your own bootstraps, kind of thing. So focus is more on the individual rather than the group, I think. And I think a lot of more conservative people think if we do pass a universal system, they'll be mandated to only use that government mandated system, and they won't be able to go out and buy a private healthcare system, which I don't think that would be the case. I think the universal healthcare system would be there for anyone who wants to use it. And if you don't want to go to the government system, you could pay more of your own money and go get, a special Anthem Blue Cross deal or something that you'd get more perks from. I
think that would apply to each individual as in accordance to their own personal needs.
Yeah.
See, Mike, and what you say is, they're scared of this. They're scared that this might happen. Well, they're in charge right now. They can make it whatever they want it to be.
Well, that's a great point. So let's go. Okay, so let's kind of shift the gear. They're in charge. We saw Graham Cassidy fail, and then I forgot what the one was before that they tried to pass. So why can't they've been talking about repealing it, and maybe replacing it for 8 years, 7 years now? Why can't they do it? Like you said, they're in charge.
It's ridiculous.
Well, Trump will tell you that they need to change the way they vote, which I disagree with. But Why can't they get it? Because I don't think they're getting a bipartisan ideas. I think, they're doing that now in the House. They have like a bipartisan idea, which I have not read, but I hear that's a lot better. But when you shut out half of the Senate, give or take half of the Senate, and don't even let them know what they're voting on, you're not getting any of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You want to get a few of those people.
But to be fair to the conservatives and the Republicans, the ACA was passed only by Democrats, and that's the first major legislation of its kind that was only passed by one party. So I hate to say it, but I think the Democrats should have almost negotiated more with the Republicans back in 2009 when they were pushing this
I hear you.
originally.
We could have got better ideas. I mean,
Okay, now do you say that because do you feel as though that the Democrats are more in tune with the middle class or lower class?
Oh no, I think both parties are totally out of tune with the middle class, and the Democrats, they're basically only help Silicon Valley, Wall Street, the health insurance industry, and then you have the Republicans who only want to help Wall Street and the wealthy investors, and then old money, the elites. So both, and that's why Trump swooped in with this populist tone, and everyone just ate it up because you have the elitist Hillary Clinton and Obama who, and Bush basically just bailed out the banks, didn't prosecute anyone. So both parties only really serve the rich and the elites.
I truly believe that Trump was not hired, but elected. Okay, this is my own personal opinion. Yes, he's a billionaire. Yes, he was given the advantage by his father by giving him $1 million to start out. He's turned that into over $1 billion empire. Okay, but I think he still had he had some way of being able to connect with, the people that are having day-to-day struggles financially, things like that. Economically, obviously they're, one and the same, but, you have an individual who's amassed that type of wealth, but was still able to relay verbiage that most of America could relate to. Mm-hmm. And obviously he was out of the political, world. He's not a career politician by any means. And aside from that, I believe that he had a great rapport with many foreign leaders because of his business ties. So as far as any foreign affairs that were, that he was left with after the Obama administration, I think he had that one-upmanship over Hillary. I mean, Hillary kind of tainted her own career by her own shenanigans. So, whether JayRay agrees with that or not, I mean, that's kind of...
I don't.
Well, you do have to give it. I mean, it's now hindsight's 2020. If we look back and listen to what Trump was saying on the campaign trail, he totally was doing the populist message. But the thing is, a lot of stuff that he said, he's not doing now. He's pulled back. He's not draining the swamp, and
I don't think he really knew what he was getting into, and that's why he's not able to accomplish what he had promised throughout the campaign.
And just so you know, I had the foresight to see that this was going to be a fucking mess.
Here we
go. I was saying it first. I ran. I don't know if you know this, but I actually ran for president this year because these two jagoffs. I couldn't vote for either one of them.
Yeah.
And so Loop Dogg will back me up on that.
So you vote? You didn't vote, or did you vote for yourself?
I did not vote. No.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't bring myself to, because I knew whoever won. I voted every time except this time because I knew whoever won is going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and pop the beer into the fucking mic.
Oh, stop! Would you?
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. No, I
need to.
I agree, and I
moisten my palate.
All right.
You know what? We're having thunderstorms in the middle of October over here. Okay, that's very unusual.
Yeah, we're in Illinois.
So that brings about the issue of climate change.
Yes.
Think about that for a moment.
Yeah. What?
You know?
Well, and
Well, there's
What
the
can we do about
segue.
And we've had
There
how
it is.
many? Yeah, that's pretty impressive right there. We've had 10 hurricanes this season, and then 2 over Category 4 hit, which is I don't think has happened for over 100 years or something. So yeah, what's up with climate change?
Well, Loop Dogg will tell you it's not.
That is not what? Climate change?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
What is it?
Yeah,
Dude, we're
it's
having
definitely
thunderstorms
climate
in the
change.
middle of October.
Now is not the time to dismantle the EPA. I really don't believe it is. I believe it's the time to double down on the E EPA.
Oh yeah, well, and especially putting Scott Pruitt, who I mean, he's like a defender of fracking. Putting him in there is just that's insane.
Yeah, I totally agree. The guy's a piece of shit, and he doesn't give a fuck about the environment. Let's put him in charge of protecting it. I mean, it's one of Trump's many brilliant fucking ideas. That
Honestly, even though I'm a Trump supporter, and that's very well known, I also feel as though that we need to accommodate the energy needs of our country. So how do you do that without,
fucking up the
impacting the
environment.
environment? Exactly,
Yeah,
where
well-
are these scientists that should be coming up with alternative energies? I mean, think about it. Now, let's take, for example, the hurricanes that are happening,
Okay.
all right?
All right.
You're talking about 150 mile an hour winds.
Yes.
How can we not harness that energy?
Right. If we had some windmill money.
Well, I don't even think the windmills would be able to handle that. But and then the hurricanes are so sporadic, it would be hard to handle it. But here over in Death Valley or Arizona or Nevada, there should be solar panels all over because and one problem with windmills actually it is killing a lot of birds. So that is a big problem that the animal rights activists and everything have with windmill power. But I think solar is pretty good.
I mean, you don't think lack of water and hurricanes are hurting wildlife as well? I mean, you're fucked no matter what you do when it comes to energy. I mean, that's my opinion. But we should at least be trying something, not just dismantling everything good that we've done. Like the G20, we shouldn't be backing out of that. We should be trying to further that. I mean, it's the liberal in me, but we're not doing enough. And just stopping doing everything is definitely not the way we should be going.
Yeah, and that's kind of it seems like a theme of the Republicans, especially with Rick Perry and a lot of these people that they put into the cabinets. It's almost it seems like they want to put someone in there and then who will dismantle or make the whole thing fall apart, and then they could say, "Look, it doesn't work."
Yeah, let me put this incompetent fuck over here so you guys see that this whole office sucks. It's Trump's way of trying to be the smartest person in the room. Don't even get me started. Don't even fucking get me started.
You know what? Honestly, the last time I heard G20, I thought it was a strand of weed that was grown by the government for medicinal purposes.
Is it?
No, there is
I've seen
something
a
like it. I think it's like T something, T123. But I think there are a lot of different ones like that. But that's funny. Well, the problem with a lot of the G20 and now the UN, these big organizations, it's kind of like they were there and created for good intentions, but almost now the UN really doesn't have any power. Kind of, we have Trump. We'll shift it up here a little bit. Go to some of Loop Dogg's favorite stuff about North Korea, because you have Trump going to the UN and saying on stage that we're going to obliterate North Korea if, Rocket Man, if he doesn't stop. So, but it kind of seems like North Korea, doesn't even care about the UN and the UN and also, the G20 and a lot of these other,
They're totally rogue.
Yeah,
They're totally
the
rogue.
G20 and the WTO is a little different, but the UN
No,
is
Kim
kind of
Jong-un
toothless. It has no power.
unfazed.
Yeah. So what do you guys see about Trump and North Korea and what he said at the UN?
I think the last comment that I saw, because it's been a war of words, and the headlines always state, we're going to fight fire with a fire, we're going to obliterate them. I think it was about 2 days ago, and I mentioned this in episode 11 the other day. I saw on Google, it said it's North Korea accusing America of lighting the wick of war.
He loves
I love that.
He loves phrases. That's why he likes Trump. He likes the blurb.
Trump has the best words. He
little
has the
quips.
biggest words.
Yeah, he loves fragments of sentences. But the UN is only as strong as the people that are a part of it. And as soon as you go out to the UN and start slapping the table and saying, we're gonna obliterate this or obliterate that, you have no respect for the UN.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you yourself are saying the UN is nothing. So how can the UN feel like they can stop anything if somebody who's supposed to be, part of the backbone is up there talking about blowing shit up?
Yeah. 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 And I mean, we had the same rhetoric from George Bush, but he at least used it. He at least said it in a better way, I suppose, which is crazy now to say George Bush could say something better than someone else, which is mind blowing that we're at this point.
George Bush was an adolescent. This guy's like preteen fucking bullshit, like elementary school playground shit.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Kim Jong-un is the same way. He's in his mid-20s.
Okay, great. Okay, here's Loop Dogg's point.
Dude, I'm going to tell you right
Trump
now.
and Kim Jong-il are right there, or Kim Jong-un are right on the same level. So good for you, Loop. So you're trying to say...
I never said that.
You're making
the
my
one that
point.
just said that.
Well, you just said it, and then I said it back to you.
No, I didn't. I said Kim Jong-un
Go
was
fuck
in
yourself,
the back. Oh,
you
get
fat
out of
bitch.
here. Get out of here.
Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I'll tell you
Mike.
what. You know what? Honestly, why isn't China doing more? That's what I want to know. I think China is, honestly, China is the key to settling down North Korea. That's my opinion.
No, I think you're right. But the thing is, I don't know what China is doing, but I think China doesn't want South Korea unified, because if South Korea is unified, then they know that we'll have power, we'll have military bases, our power in that region basically expands. But China also doesn't want a war, because if there's a war, they're going to have millions of refugees flowing into China.
Exactly.
And completely creating chaos. So the only good situation and scenario for China is status quo, how it is right now. Or if the North were to be taken over by China, and then China could just take over the South. I think that would be the best thing, if China could put in their own dictator and then they reunify the country under China's rule, which that's never going to happen. So it's like lose-lose scenario for China. So I don't think China wants to do anything. They just want to keep it how it is. I mean, that's how I see it.
And Loop Dogg knows this because I explained it to him slowly. I mean, if we go to war with North Korea and God forbid nuclear bombs get dropped, that's right on China's border. They don't want that fallout bullshit. They don't want nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. It's guilty by association. They're too close. And so of course they just want it to stay out. Everybody calm down. Kim, go back to doing what you're doing. Trump, leave us alone. Of course they want that. We want the same thing.
Why are we relying on Kim to go, all right, we're going to say to Kim, you know what? You've already fired up enough bottle rockets. You're done. Stop playing. Go to your corner. Dude, come on. Stop with that bullshit.
Why is everything with you a Steven Seagal movie? It's not. It's complicated as fuck.
Actually, to Loop Dogg's...
I don't think I know this.
To Loop Dogg's credit, he kind of has a point. Did you hear the recent news that broke, how North Korea stole South Korea records and American records? We had plans that we were going to go in and assassinate him. That was actually one of the plans, and they hacked the database and recovered those plans. So that apparently was on the table, but I doubt they would do that now. And I don't know, the people in that country seem to almost worship that guy. So if we were to go in and assassinate him, I don't know if that seems like the best idea. What do you guys? What do you think about that?
I mean,
are they not forced to worship them?
Well, I don't know. Do we know? Because I don't know. Are they forced, or do they genuinely worship that family? I don't really know.
I mean, if you don't know anything else, it's hard not to. But what I do know is that Loop Dogg doesn't fucking know.
That's my God.
Right.
Have another beer, JayRay.
Thank you. I will.
Keep trashing me.
But yeah, it's just if you grow up one way and only that way, and you're used to that, and that's just your everyday way of life. You it's kind of like the kidnapping syndrome, where after you're kidnapped for so long, you start to love your kidnapper.
Stockholm syndrome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of like that. If you don't know anything else and you've been trained, then yeah, you've
You're talking about
accepted
Kim
it.
Jong-un, right?
Yes, I am, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
I am.
right.
his
Absolutely.
worshipper, or his people.
And I have stated that he is probably the worst example of child rearing in the history of man.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Trump.
No, not at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to think he's been told that he's, next to God his entire life, and then now gets in power. And what are the people of North Korea? They can only have like 5 haircuts or something.
Yes.
So.
Is that true?
Yeah, you're only allowed to have so many haircuts if you live in North Korea. I mean, it's a very authoritarian.
In your life?
Yeah. I mean, you could change it up, but you're only allowed those 5 specific haircuts. Like, you can't have another
Are you
haircut.
talking cuts or styles?
Styles.
Because it looks like Tim gets his haircut every other day because it's real tight back. It's real tight.
Well, yeah, but it has to stay that style, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I think that's the look I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah.
That would look good on you,
The Gene Simmons haircut since 1971.
No, absolutely not. That's not true. I don't think anybody could duplicate Gene Simmons' hair. No way.
Oh, boy. Okay, sorry.
I know. I'm sorry. I do apologize again to Loop Dogg that we have no glam rock bands to be playing
Please
here,
don't. Please don't.
We do have quite a collection of bands and music being shared on the podcast, but not really none of that. So, but yeah, guys. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on the podcast and just rambling on. It's been a really interesting and fun conversation.
I appreciate. You know what? I'll tell you what. I appreciate you having us on, and we're riding on your coattails. JayRay will never admit to that.
Oh, well, they're not. They're not big coattails. They're not very big, so you guys might, fall off. But, yeah, it was really fun having you guys on. I wanted to talk to you guys because I've been enjoying your podcast for the last couple weeks, listening to it. It's really laid back. You guys are super funny. I think everyone definitely, if you're into podcasts and into just like random political banter, I think you would definitely enjoy Politics with Dummies. So, JayRay and Loop Dogg, before I let you guys go, can you let everyone know online what's the best place to find your podcast and any social media accounts you guys might have?
Oh, thanks, Mike. We're on everything. We're on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. Stitcher Radio, we're on there, and we're on Twitter @WithDummies, and that's enough. I don't want to plug too much. I appreciate you having us on, Mike.
No worries, definitely. Yeah, thanks for coming on. And yeah, so just check out Politics with Dummies. And thanks again, JayRay and Loop Dogg, for coming on, guys. I really had a blast.
Thank you, brother. Sorry about this dumb bitch.
Oh, no worries. That's part of the fun, man. Well, here, before I let you guys go, here's a song. Loop Dogg, I think you might enjoy. Here's "I Hate the Government" by 390.
Not long ago I had a wonderful life.
Alright, what's up? Welcome to Open Mic's Last Call. Let's give another big shout out to JayRay and Loop Dogg. That's those guys are definitely really interesting. Really fun interview. Yeah, and definitely if you're into podcasts and that's your thing, go check their podcasts out. It's pretty funny. And it's always cool to have interesting other people on. I actually really enjoyed that. And I've also, before having Bruce Harris on a few weeks ago, he was from the podcast First and Monday, having him on, talking to him about podcasts and stuff, that's kind of fun. I think I'm definitely going to have I was talking to JayRay. He's a big punk rock fan, and I guess he didn't really get to talk about how punk has changed his life and how he's a big fan of Henry Rollins, and he sent me all this after we did the interview, and I'm like, dude, like, that's so cool. So I definitely am gonna have him back on and talk about that another time, and we'll kind of go into just talking about punk and what it's meant to us and music in general, and and also, I mean, it's the spoken word from Henry Rollins and Jello Biafra. Personally, those are two huge, that's not even music, that's just their spoken word. It's just so profound. I love Jello Biafra's spoken word. So yeah, definitely big shout out to Politics with Dummies. So that was awesome. And also, it was really cool how we were able to feature a lot of music, because now, the podcast has been going almost a year now. I think this is episode number 40, so we've had quite a bit of catalog of bands who have been featured. So I always like to go back, if I have someone like JayRay and Loop Dogg on the podcast who don't really have their own music to present, we could just throw on some old bands who's been on before, and we kind of get a flashback and remember some music, or who knows, maybe if some of these bands have some new music, I can actually play some of their new music. So it was really cool. We had Reagan Youth at the courthouse and 390. I always plug 390 whenever I have an opportunity to plug a band or plug anyone. I'm always like, 390, man. Ronnie and 390, the guys, and those guys are awesome. So alright, welcome to Open Mic's Last Call. I'm gonna just stop rambling and get to the point, because I only have, a little while, and, I always kind of go make these a little longer than what they're supposed to, like always. And I thought that was so funny, though, like what JayRay was saying, how, what did he say? When he was doing the podcast alone, he sounded like a pompous asshole or something, which I'm like, dude, that's kind of how I felt the first couple episodes, and then listening back, I would talk really slow and a lot of ums and so I think I've gotten a little better, me personally, as a DJ or a radio personality. I've been trying to work on my interview skills and everything, so thank you for listening to this little end Open Mic's Last Call, because this is really my practice part, and this is really where I'm able to vent my own frustrations, and because I really have to, like I was saying before, I got to step back and stop over talking during the interviews. I don't really like to call it so much an interview. I almost think of the podcast more as a dialogue. So that's why I do really talk long, and I think some bands don't get that, and they kind of get offended, or they think I'm trying to get them to answer, I'm trying to trick them with some long, complicated question. But, I think that's the best way to actually get into certain things, is having long, complicated dialogue, long question that's actually very detailed, so then you can actually look at several aspects of a certain problem. So here's the big thing that's going on is the NFL, the taking the knee thing. So it's still going on. Trump had his little war with words. We talked about that. I mean, this was been going on for several weeks, but now Colin Kaepernick is actually, I think he's suing either the 49ers or the NFL about a wrongful termination for why he was fired. So this is going to get interesting. And also Roger Goodell, the main NFL commissioner, he's kind of suggesting that all the players should be forced to, stand and pledge for the national anthem. So all the owners are going to meet up and they're going to decide what to do. And I was listening to a radio personality here in San Diego earlier today, and it got me fired up, and that's why I was like, that's why I'm going to do my open mics night about tonight when I go and ramble on the mic like a crazy person. He said this thing. He was like, politics is now bleeding into football, and it's bleeding into everyday life, and it's bleeding into everything, and people are sick of it. And I was thinking, politics is bleeding into everything because the system and because society is falling apart. I mean, it's like society, and that's the thing. People aren't kneeling in the NFL just for no reason. They're just like, oh, fuck America, like I hate the country. No, they're actually kneeling, taking a knee because of the police violence, and also with the big economic separation from the ultra rich to the ultra poor. You have this huge homeless population. You have a lot of people. It's just politics is bleeding into everything because our society is basically crumbling. It's falling apart. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, the middle class is disappearing. We're going through this new tech revolution, this information revolution, which is basically going to be as drastic, if not more drastic, than the industrial revolution. And we're sitting in the middle of it. If you were to go in 1975 and then you were to go and warp into 2050, 2040, it's going to be a completely different world. We can't even understand, we can't even fathom how many more things are going to change within the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years with drones, automated computers, supercomputers. So our system is changing, and people protesting at football games, people going out, and the Black Lives Matter, a lot of the pussy hats, the resistance, the feminist movement, this shit with Harvey Weinstein, and then now this Me Too hashtag that's pointing out sexual harassment and sexual violence towards women, which is huge. It's pervasive. It's so much bigger than anyone wants to admit or actually acknowledge. And it's always about, we need to tell women not to get raped or teach women how to defend themselves. It's never about, we need to have men stop raping. Teach men to stop raping and stop treating women as sexual objects. And then maybe the problem might be resolved. So it's a fundamental changing. I mean, maybe it's not crumbling. Maybe it is changing for the better, but all these jobs leaving, a lot of jobs being taken over by robots. So a lot of things are changing, and everyone wants to blame politics or blame Trump or, just blame Colin Kaepernick and say, they should just stop kneeling and just stand up and just respect the country and respect the flag and, blah, blah, blah. Or if they keep kneeling, then the fans are going to leave and the fans aren't going to watch. That's what this commentator was saying. And, even if the fans do leave, I still think there's going to be enough people who are going to still watch the NFL in order for it to make a profit. The big thing that's going to hurt the NFL in the long run is the concussion thing, and also that playing football is just so expensive. But a lot of people aren't going to want to let their kids play once the problems with concussions comes out more and more, and they realize how dangerous playing football actually is. So pretty much every corner of the economy, every corner of our society, every corner of the music industry, Eminem had his big anti-Trump rap type thing. But I think it's really funny. There's been a lot of monologues of how rappers used to use Trump or Donald Trump, his name, as, I'm like Donald Trump, or like my Donald Trump shit, like talking about like, oh, I'm so rich like Trump. It's really funny how rap and the rap world has turned around using Trump as like a positive, like, oh wow, he's so great because he's so rich and he has money and he has gold and bitches, and turning it around and being like, oh, fuck Donald Trump, we hate Trump. And it's like, dude, it's so funny because Trump, he didn't really change. He's still what he is and what he's always been and what he represents. It's just rich excess, that he has so much, and he has to have gold walls, gold toilets. And then we have our society where our healthcare system is falling apart. People can't have healthcare. Other people can't even afford, they're working full time, but they can't even afford rent. They can't afford food. But it's okay because our stock market is at an all-time high. And yes, sure, some people invest in the stock market. However, those people who invest in the stock market, usually long term. So by the time the next crash hits, they're going to lose 60% of everything they gained, and they're going to be right back to where they were back, back before the crash of 2008. So it's not really like you go, what is the saying? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's more like 1 step forward, 1 step back. We're not really growing that much. And I only see the problem exacerbating and getting worse. I don't see it really getting better. I mean, I do see visionaries out there who are really pushing for UBI and pushing for, Bernie Sanders, the Medicare for all, Elon Musk in the tech world pushing for sustainable cars. I mean, I didn't even talk about the environment and how that's falling apart, and we're just destroying the environment. So it's every sector of our economy. Why are we destroying the environment? Yes, that's right. For profit. Everything is for profit. It's all about profit over human life, profit over the environment, profit over societal stability. I mean, it's like the profit is more important than having society be stable. I don't understand how people at the very top echelons of power, or the ultra elite, how they're like, or even the economists at all the Ivy League schools, they're the people are totally okay with the outsourcing of jobs and living on $10 or $8 an hour and having to pay $1,000 to $2,000 for a studio apartment, and ownership of housing is going down, productivity is through the roof, but people's wages are stagnant. Healthcare is going up, gas is going up, but it's okay. It's okay because we have smartphones, and you would never have had access to technology like a smartphone back in the 90s. I mean, I'm not joking. This is the justification that Ivy League professors, liberal Ivy League neoliberal Ivy League professors, they push, and it's just what? It's like, wow, you sound like a Republican neocon. So everything that's going on is only going to get worse. And, I really hope that the owners do say all players have to stand and put their hand over their heart and shit, because the NFL basically it's basically like a recruiting tool, because what happened is a lot of people looked into this and they're paying the NFL money in order to do a lot of halftime shows and go out and trot the military around and be like, oh, thank you for your service and la la la, and oh yes, America's so great, we need to join the military and go bomb more brown people, go take over more countries, go start more wars. And so I don't really give a shit. Actually, I think this is like really funny that the NFL is actually getting hit back by this, because they deserve it. So I hope they force everyone to stand up, and then that the ramifications and the backlash from that are going to be far worse than if they were just to leave it as it is. And eventually it will fizzle out. Trump will find a new shiny object to tweet about. Police injustice will keep going on, and I'm sure some people will still kneel, and it won't be a big deal anymore for a while. So that would be the best case scenario for everyone else. But I think the NFL is going to be stupid, and the owners are going to be kind of dumb on this, and they're going to force all the players to actually go and stand up and put their hand over their right hand over their heart. They're going to be forced to do this. It's going to be crazy. So, all right, I got to wrap this up. Like I said, it's always so far. So we're going to wrap all this up, and we'll see you again next week. Peace out. Thanks for checking out Punk Rock and Politics. If you enjoyed the show and the information brought to you, please subscribe and share the podcast. It helps us here at Punk Rock and Politics, but more importantly, it helps the featured bands gain exposure. Also, if you know any bands or musicians who would like to join the political mosh pit and have their music featured on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, please email us at punkrockandpolitics@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. And rock on, political junkies. I think
our society is run by insane people for insane objectives.
Doing a better job of talking to each other. The left hand now knows what the right hand is doing.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.